on items related. Sorry, I'll go ahead and start again. Sorry. This is a meeting of community volunteers tasked to advise council on items related to the Water Bureau and the Bureau of Environmental Services. Under Portland City Code and state law, the Portland Utility Board is holding this meeting electronically. Board members and relevant city staff are attending remotely, electronically, or by phone, and the city has made it available for the public to listen to the audio broadcast of this meeting. The public will have an opportunity to provide comments during the public comment portion of the agenda, and can also provide written testimony to the board by emailing utilityboard@portlandoregon.gov. The pub believes and acts upon anti-racist principles. In our meeting spaces and interactions with pub, while every person has the right to share their personal perspective, we stand against wrongful conduct, particularly any conduct that is targeted toward people that are made vulnerable by systemic inequities. This means stepping up as a community where there is wrongful conduct and fostering a space of learning and growth. Putting our principles into action, be active and deliberate, speak up and speak out. Each person is empowered to maintain the culture of the Portland Utility Board. We focus on the impacted individual or population, condemn the conduct, not the person.
Hi, my name is Amy Archer-Masters, and I'll quickly run through the meeting guidelines. Please state your name before you speak, and if appropriate, who you're addressing. The chat box is only viewable by the co-hosts, myself and Jonna Lynn, so please limit to technical and logistical issues, including signing up for public comment, asking for technical assistance, or reminding us if you've been waiting to speak and have not been called on. The raise hand function is primarily used by the board during conversations. We may lower your hand once you begin speaking just to maintain the flow of conversation. During public comment periods, public can raise your hand and you'll be called on when appropriate. If connecting by phone, you may need to press *9 to raise your hand, or if that's a difficulty, you can unmute and let us know that you have something to say. Videos may be turned on when speaking if desired, not required. Please mute your microphone when you're not speaking. If connecting by phone, you may need to press *6 to mute and unmute. Public comment will be taken during the comment period early in the meeting. You can sign up through chat with myself and Jonna Lynn, or raise your hand during the comment period. It's also available prior to any formal board vote after a motion has been made and seconded by board members. The meeting's being recorded. I'll pass it back to you, Kyle, for the agenda.
Thank you, Amy. Reading through the agenda, we're going to move through our call to order and disclosure of communications, followed by public comment and review of minutes. We have 20 minutes of general updates, which include the leadership team meeting from last week, as well as brief updates or high-level updates on both filtration and flood safety benefit fee. Then we move into a half-hour presentation of the advisory body's enhancement project, followed by 20 minutes of pub engagement, forecasting our vision and our approach to city council engagement. And then finally, announcements and next pub meeting, which is coming in a very tight October 16th. So we'll also talk about the feasibility and logistics of that before adjourning and hopefully catching some vitamin D collectively. All right, thank you. We move next to disclosure of communications following the lovely stalwart image of Alexis Wright from last year's field trip. This is a moment set aside for any voting board member to disclose any communications with city leadership or bureau staff regarding items that could relate to pub's work. Are there any items that pub members wish to disclose? Beautiful. In that case, we move on to calls for public comment. Do we have any calls, Amy or John Lynn?
I do not have any chat requests. Nothing in advance of the meeting. No. If there's somebody in the room, please feel free to either unmute or raise your hand.
Beautiful. For those of the public who are attending, thank you for your attendance. We move on to review of minutes. The September 18th minutes were distributed. Are there any suggested changes or corrections from voting board members? Wonderful. Seeing none, the minutes are accepted as they stand. All right, we move on to updates. Amy or John Lynn, do you want to kick us off? Oh, I'm sorry. It's
So
actually
the
me.
first one,
I'd like to.
actually, I'll let you kick off, Kyle.
Oh, go.
And
I
I'm
do have
happy to give
prepared.
the update, but it is the leadership
Thank
team
you.
update. And
Love
so
it.
you are welcome to, and I can chime in if there's anything to add, just brief.
100%. I'm wonderfully prepared. All right. So we did meet. It was a little bit of a reduced collection of folks. It was Amy, John Lynn, Lauren, and myself, alongside Director Light, as well as Farshad and Cecilia. Um, Director Liu and DC Donapal were unable to make it, both for other commitments and just kind of juggling priorities over the day. It was a really full agenda. We covered topics from One Water, touched briefly on the flood safety benefit fee, filtration, including the potential for PWB and BES field trips, Tryon Creek, and the affordability strategy. And then also just had an overarching kind of approach for the quarter ahead. The goal of these meetings is to every 2 months, 3 months, every couple months, maybe tighter if needed, maybe looser if not, we align as board leadership and staff alongside bureau leadership in order to help forecast their priorities and workflows so that we can build our agendas and also then ask questions, make requests for information. So it's really helpful to align for the next couple months ahead. For me, probably the biggest opportunity, which coincides with the final 20 minutes of our meeting today, is to really prepare a thoughtful presentation to council, which is either our annual requested working session or some kind of testimony to share independent observations and specifically tell the story of value proposition and service delivery. This came out of the conversation that it's as much education as it is edification. And we are positioned to use language and convey our understanding through the depth of content on these calls to City Council to help either reinforce or make our own proposals. So City Council work session or testimony is like a key guiding light for the months ahead. The other big takeaway is, sorry, all that agenda stuff I listed at the start, it's really going to factor in the coming weeks, presentations we receive and discussions we have. So we're going to like talk about that stuff as it comes up on, you know, these bi-monthly meetings. But the other big thing I want to flag is that the bureaus are comprised of passionate technical professionals, and these are human beings, and they are feeling as stressed, as stretched as any of us are in this pretty intense moment. And just that we're all here working together and that we're all people in the end. That was just a human reminder that was helpful for me to hear personally. Amy and John Lynn, anything you want to add to that summary?
No, I think that's great. Just, I guess, always echoing that any members, if there's something that you want to make sure that we're engaging with leadership on, please reach out to John Lynn or myself as staff or either of the chairs, and we'll coordinate with them accordingly. So just let us know.
Lorraine?
Thank you, Lorraine Wilson, voting member. I'm not sure if I'm missing something, but is this something new?
I don't think so. I maybe like being so forthright or like, I mean, this is the first time I joined, and I understand how longer term agendas are set, and it's kind of like hearing what the bureau leadership is saying, bringing our own. We built the agenda, so it's them responding to points we raised, so that they can also prepare presentations, and then we can make like strategic requests in time. So I think that's it. These have always occurred, right, Amy?
Yeah, Lorraine, we've had the leadership meetings on a recurring basis. As Kyle mentioned, sometimes they've been more frequent, sometimes they're less. It's depended on kind of the need. But we have had a lot of changeover in board membership as well as in chairs. So as well as in directors, and now being under the city administration as well. So just kind of reconvening, hopefully with more frequency, but also trying to build that relationship and do some planning for the year.
Okay, so when was the last one held? That's why I'm asking if it's something new. And could you just share again the composition of this leadership meeting? Because and I don't trust my memory, I'm going to be forthright about it, but it seems like that I don't have a recent memory of this group convening?
The last meeting was in July, so it's not been very long. And then we had one in spring as well. So it's usually the chairs, the bureau liaisons and directors. In prior life, under commissioners, there would be commissioner staff, occasionally the commissioner. So in the current form, it's the Deputy City Administrator, Priya Dhanapal, and any other relevant folks. Sometimes it's their equity managers, depending on what some of the content on the agenda is, if we're planning, for updates related to equity plans in the coming months. So it's really mostly about planning for what is coming up for pub. And as Kyle said, the agenda is set by the chairs. So we help do that. And also by leadership on the other side. So if there's priorities from the DCA, for example, then it may conform to that.
Okay, and the frequency is, now that we're back on track, every month?
Every couple months or quarterly, typically is what we have done. Occasionally shorter or longer, depending on budget season and the need to meet. Staff often coordinate directly just with the staff liaisons for the bureaus as well in between. So in lieu of a leadership meeting if it's not needed, but yeah, it's just about coordination. So the update here, the difference is like we haven't necessarily done updates, but we started doing these brief updates at the beginning of pub meetings based on some direction from a prior co-chair. And so this was one that's taken place since the last meeting, and just wanted to kind of bring people up to speed, especially since there's so many new members, just about kind of the structure of that and provide updates.
Wonderful, thank you. I hope it was also edifying to the new members to know what this is all about. So thank you.
Thank you,
I'm
Lorraine.
all caught up.
That's fine. I'll give a lower context. And even as we think ahead to the next one, I think Kyle Chipman, voting member, sorry. I think quarterly felt good. That was my head going in, and it kind of feels right going out. And the direct connection for me is like the appreciation I've felt for Amy and John Lynn, like really thoughtful, thorough read aheads. It really is emergent from this longer term planning of like, what are the upcoming priorities? And I think it'd be great next round out, we take 20 minutes, 30 minutes as a board, and like the agenda was pretty much coming out from existing momentum, but we can like build the agenda together. So there's consensus going in, and we're just continuing to anticipate and plan and be proactive. So that's the vibe I got. I yield the floor for updates on filtration and flood safety benefit fee to Amy or John Lynn.
John Lynn, are you taking filtration as well as the other?
I was gonna just do the flood safety, but yeah.
Okay. So at the prior meeting, actually maybe it was a couple of meetings ago, Water Bureau provided an update on their annual report for Bull Run, and had invited the opportunity for testimony from pub or individual members when they go to full council. They did the update with the policy committee just yesterday or earlier this week. And the presentation to council is on October 15th. So just wanted folks to be aware that it was out there, and that there's opportunity for written testimony if either the full board or individuals are interested in doing that. We can make sure that you have the links to the right council item. So far, the most of the written testimony that's been received, I believe, is opposition related to the filtration plant. So just wanted to bring that to folks' attention and see if there was interest. Kyle.
Thank you, Kyle Chipman, voting member. I personally would be, at the very least, in favor of, I don't know if it's a subcommittee that has to get formed or just some small working crew so that we can investigate and draft a response. And I think it's mentioned, it'd be nice if there's like one team member who has more technical knowledge in the field. But for the presentations and the incurred cost of delayed construction and the legal requirement to construct the facility, like I'm in favor of supporting it and then gauging and listening to the points of the opposition. Jenny, you have the floor.
Yeah, Jenny O'Connor. The only thing I picked up from that was that there was some appeal on behalf of the what? I forgot what goal it was, but some appeal to LUBA. And I was just wondering about the status of that. I mean, this is kind of low, but it did, I know the appeal before, they had an appeal before and it did stop the construction. So I was wondering if, if that's going along smoothly or is it, what's it looking like?
So we did get an update from the Bureau staff regarding the status of that, and ultimately the LUBA, the initial appeal was resolved and construction was resuming. So the Water Bureau, the last time that PUB received an update, there was updates around kind of the resumption of the work, but not clear numbers yet on the fiscal impact of kind of that delay and how that changed everything. There will be additional updates to the board in the future. So it's an ongoing conversation, and there might be Bureau staff, if there's specific questions we can connect with to try to get responses about the status of the project. But the work has been resuming. I believe there is still some push on the legal side, so I'm not sure what the next steps are related to that, but I can try to get more details. I'm not recalling from the last conversation.
Thanks, Amy.
Kyle Chipman, thank you, Kyle Chipman, voting member. Amy, can you walk through like either the timing requirements of submitting a written recommendation or some kind of written testimony prior to October 15th, and then like if we have to form something that is able to coordinate outside of these meetings?
So what I would like to do, if you want, if there's agreement, is make sure in this public meeting you get agreement about kind of the general content, which I heard you make a couple statements and we could really just draw from that. The written submission can be a long formal letter. It also can be as simple as just a short paragraph submitted as written comment to the council agenda when it's posted. So we would just need to make sure that that's filed before the council session starts, so that we make sure that it's part of the written document for the record, and that council members would have an opportunity to see it before decisions are finalized on that. So it can be pretty informal, can be delegated to either statements that are made and staff can just take that and put that into writing on behalf of the PUB, or individual experts. If you want to convene, we can work with you all, or just help make sure that that gets posted. And members individually can, of course, post anytime on their own as individuals.
I'll speak briefly from my perspective, and I'd love to hear if anybody else either has capacity or deeper insights than what I can offer. I want to first just recognize that I've primarily received this information through the prism of the Bureau's presentations. So it's not that it's one-sided, but it's coming from that angle of approach. It is reassuring that the first LUBA that Jenny was flagging, specifically the goal 5 criteria, which was elevated for the environmental impact, was already met. I just want to like do a good faith due diligence to understand what points of opposition are being raised in this second LUBA. So it's not just a blanket move forward, but like we are in a budget crunch. This thing has to get built, and it's just incurring. It's just even Myra last session, like saying this is a public health benefit and it's going to help people be healthier. Like there's a lot of reasons that seem on the surface to be in favor of this. That's how I stand.
Any feedback from other board members or agreement on interest in submitting comment?
Well, I agree with what Kyle's saying. Yeah, I'm just going to say I agree. I would assume, I would hope that the Water Bureau is on top of any resistance they're getting and are, engaging with the appropriate community group on it. So, yeah.
Tell you what, for the sake, thank you, Jenny. Kyle Chipman, voting member. For the sake of moving the meeting forward and moving on to flood safety benefit fee, at the very least, tomorrow I am free tomorrow evening, so I can even just do a dive myself on the points of opposition in the LUBA and like do a draft of some language. And then if there's no like major opposition to board members on this call and it's staff receiving intent and some targeted language, we can help move this forward ahead of October 15th. And I'm happy to collaborate or work in consensus with others if there's capacity or interest from other board members.
That sounds good as far as process. Oh, let me hear from other board members first. Myra, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. The one thing I brought up last time that maybe we can add to the letter is asking them the thought process behind why they're building, where they're building. I think that would just be very helpful from an equity standpoint to see if there's any, like in comparison to places that might be lower socioeconomic status, for example, and seeing if those neighborhoods or communities are also thought of in this filtration process as well. That was my only other thought.
Thanks, Myra. We can definitely look into that. I know that a huge piece of the reasoning behind where it is built is based on it being gravity flow. And that is a significant cost benefit and energy use and impact benefit to all ratepayers and users. But we can pull some more information. And Kyle, what I was going to respond to your point is that, particularly since you're chair, and as long as we compose something that's consistent with what PUB has discussed and shared in the past, which is along the lines of, that you're providing oversight where appropriate, concerns about impact of additional delays and some of the other pieces that you've highlighted during this and prior meetings, then that is well within your realm of responsibility as co-chair. So we as staff could help finalize that with you if there aren't any others who are interested in participating. And I know, Myra, at the prior meeting, you shared some of the public health framework as well, and the concern about lead in water and addressing that and the public health impact. So that might be a valuable piece to include as well. So if any of those components were incorporated, it might be valuable to get your feedback as well.
Yes, of course.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Myra. And I think the goal of keeping it pretty tight, not threadbare, but succinct, awesome goal. And that's like focused messaging. Julia, your hand is raised.
Hello. I just wanted to apologize for losing connection there for a little bit, but as you can see, I'm back in the meeting. But because I was out, could I just get it real quick? What are we talking about input on right now? I'm so sorry.
The filtration annual report going to council.
Oh, perfect. Because like you mentioned lead, and that is kind of the project, the issue that near and dear to my heart. So I'm happy to assist in at least reviewing this.
You cut out at the very end there, but I got the message that you're happy to participate in reviewing any of the language. So that would be great. We will reach out to you as well.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Amy. Moving on in our final couple minutes to flood safety benefit free from John Lynn.
Thank you. Just to kind of recap where we came from and what's next for this in terms of pubs engagement. Basically in the spring, the council directed the bureaus to develop a plan to move the fee or the amount that Portland is paying from the general fund onto the rate or into the rates, right? So, or not, it's not part of the utility fee, but it is going to be, the utility fee is going to be used as a mechanism for the city to collect the fee from residents and commercial landowners. So CFO Bieri presented at the pub meeting on August 5th, kind of explain the outline of the history of that. And if you want more information, you can start with that. A more detailed presentation was provided to the Finance Committee then on September 22nd, and where I think all of you have had a chance to review the fee structure. So essentially, most residential, yes, that's right. So the average home is going to pay about $1.20 a month. So they will see this as a line item on their bill, starting July 1 of 2026. So that moved from Finance Committee to full council. And unfortunately, as staff, we sort of had the impression, as I mentioned in Read Ahead, we had the impression that there would be a little bit more engagement with pub prior to a final decision. However, there really is not going to be much time for pub to weigh in. The full council voted to move it to a second reading, and that is happening tomorrow. As I think I mentioned in the in Read Ahead and last well, as soon as we knew that it was going to be going to council, wanted to make sure you knew that there were opportunities to engage as individuals. Of course, not you can mention affiliation with pub, but pub hasn't really taken any kind of stance on the fee, whether it should be charged, etc. And that does not seem to be up for debate at this point in terms of what council is considering. So like I said, it's moving to second reading, and there is not going to be a further opportunity to provide verbal testimony about the fee. But if you would like to, on your own, submit written feedback to council, that's still open for now. It was noted that there had, during the council was interested in what kind of engagement happened. It was mentioned that pub was informed, but obviously there was not really opportunity for pub to engage about the fee. And the CFO has indicated interest in getting council approval to proceed, then focus on communications to the public. So trying to make it clear that it's, even though it's on the utility bill, it's not a utility fee. And that may be an opportunity where pub can kind of help develop that messaging or engage with how they're developing that messaging. You may, at this point, may want to take time to figure out whether you want to pursue any kind of response or next steps. You could choose to come back to this later in the discussion. We don't want to spend too much more time. We're a little bit behind already. But we understand that pub's primary concern at this point has been a little bit the lack of engagement on this fee. And so if there is desire for pub to provide that feedback, that's definitely something that that pub staff can help support you with, in terms of making it clear how you might want to be engaged in the fee, or just the concerns around the having less engagement around this fee. So the other thing is obviously pub's concern around potential impact to limiting rate increases in the future because of the perception that there already is this rate increase. So so I would be happy to hear feedback or any ideas about how pub would like to proceed, whether we do that now or at a future meeting. Lorraine?
So I have many concerns. And I think I have shared that with you all, Jonna, in an email. Because the presentation we had from, is it the CFO?
Yes.
Was cursory at most. That's being generous. It lacked significant information. And he wasn't able to answer many questions. And that is concerning to me in that we have been in discussions over the last few months about challenges residents are having with their bills. There are even with the high density homes and all these things that the bureaus are already challenged in collecting fees. And here we are now adding something that is totally unrelated and putting another level of people looking at their bill and it's like, what is this about? And that is compounded by no engagement. And I raised the point in my response to you all that I hope that they didn't go to council and said, oh, we met with pub and check our engagement box. Because that should never be considered engagement. And that is what we need to be wary of as a body, that we are used as a checkbox for someone to say, oh, we came to pub, so that equates to engagement. And I just wanted to bring this point publicly about my concern, because when they came, he had no information. He admitted it. He said, I don't know enough about this. And this is in the early stages. And here we are realizing now that, no, it wasn't in the early stage. They were heading down the street with this. And I want to say it publicly, because if or when there is concerns raised by the public about, oh, what is this cost about? What is, you're raising more fees? How is this? What, all of that, that it is clear that we were not the checkbox for engagement, and that the city made an informed decision to not do engagement and to move forward with this decision to place this charge on the utility bill for residents to witness and then ask question about. So I just wanted to state that publicly.
Thank you, Lorraine. I do want to note for those who did not watch the presentations that CFO Bieri made to either the committee or council, that when there were some concerns or questions raised about engagement, and what I heard in response was, particularly in the first committee, that there was not any public engagement, that the work team that they had was internal in developing the proposal, and there was interest in taking that to council to see whether there was interest in proceeding with this, in order to then work on communications to the public. In the second meeting with the full council, they did CFO Bieri did mention that they came to pub to inform or share information. But even that took place before the specifics of the customer impacts were available. I think the work team was still kind of finalizing those pieces. So the specific details weren't available. It was just informing you about what was coming. I think one of the points made by, I can't remember, I believe one of the council members was, and that I would assume would be echoed by pub, is the important distinction between engagement and communications, that they aren't the same thing. So there is still, I think, a plan and interest from the bureaus and administration in kind of the next phase of council is moving this forward and figuring out the right communications to the public. But that is different than engaging before a decision is made. So that was part of the reason why we're bringing it back to you, is based on some of the concerns raised in the past, as well as just to be clear about what was shared and what the details were about the proposal.
Thanks. I just wanted to come back and just say this so that we are clear. And my recollection about this is not challenged by my memory. The information that came to pub was cursory at best. So I understand that you're saying that he said that the pub was informed. Let us be clear that when he came to the pub, the information provided was cursory at best. And he admitted, he said, I don't have as much information as I remember him saying something to that effect. And we can go back and look at it because the meetings are recorded. So I just want to be clear, whether he said we were informed or whatever, it must be clear that the information was cursory at best.
Kyle Chipman, voting member. I think that by the resolve and passion of Lorraine's statements and also Jenny's independent research investigating the actual kind of the policy, the breakdown, I think there's enough momentum on our side to actually take this up as a thoughtful point of investigation. And even as I was digging in, just trying to understand, like, what are the dynamics of the Urban Flood Safety and Water Quality District and its intersection with the legislature, and like, what are all these organizing bodies? I understand that there are ways that even as we enter into this ABC conversation next, like, where do we or do we not have jurisdiction? We're still an organized collection of people who are, tethered to these bureaus. So, we were talking a little bit. I think it would be helpful to move on to the next agenda point, but I make that recommendation acknowledging that we have our next meeting. Our meeting is next week, and we don't really have a concrete agenda coming from the Bureau. So if we do end up either forming a subcommittee or choosing to meet next week, you can make this a point of focus and just dig in a little bit deeper to understand where we fall and how we can make our voices very clear and our positions very clear as representatives of the citizen media Portland. That's my thought.
So the only downside to that, Kyle, is that if there is interest in making a statement in a way that council can receive it before they finalize the decision as it relates to the specific issue that they're considering, which is the shift to charging the fee on the utility bill, at using the metrics that the internal work team has worked out, that goes back for their second reading at council tomorrow, I believe, right?
Oh, rats.
So it's before the next meeting. Now, I do think, based on what we have heard in the past, as well as the folks who are here, that it might be worth at least taking some time to identify if there's some key points that on a very brief way can just make it clear that PUB was informed that you weren't engaged and that there's concern about the lack of engagement and interest in, whatever else, folks have that are raised from the details of the conversation today.
Yeah.
So, but you may want to make time for it. And we could always shift some other things accordingly if folks wanted to at least get at a very high level what it is that you wanted to try to address, if anything, for the written comment for tomorrow's meeting.
That makes sense. Even if we can't hit it for tomorrow's meeting, at least we're not totally like long-term reactive saying we're not engaged. No, in this specific instance, there was little to no community engagement. Here's the reasons and here's our observations. Alexis and Jenny, but just to keep things moving.
Yeah, Alexis Strife, voting member. Thank you for that, Lorraine. I agree with you wholeheartedly on your comments, and I think it's actually really important that we put together a few points to get before council before they vote on this tomorrow. And I guess my suggestions there would be, because I agree, I don't want it to be, there's a difference between communication and engagement. And so I think it can be said that in August, PUB received an update that was, light on details, and that PUB expressed concern at the time about this being incorporated into utility bills where residents are already feeling that strain, and that we remain concerned about this. And, it's part of our ongoing work and approach to be balancing the needs of the bureaus and infrastructure and regulatory requirements, et cetera, along with affordability. And that, I would say that we have concerns that this, the only word that's coming to mind, but this derails, this threatens that work that we have toward and our focus on balancing those two things by putting an additional fee directly onto residents. So that would be my proposal for a few points to put before council in writing.
Thank you,
Jenny,
Alexis.
did you-
Jenny, go ahead.
I just wanted to say, if we have time to do that, we'd have to do it tonight.
Yeah.
The only other concern I have is precedent. If they're going to do this now, what's next? That is a concern, and I'd like to have that on the record. So it makes sense to put together something that we can give to them tomorrow. I don't know. Something about engagement and, and also it just seems like he's more like has his mind. Well, it just seems like the way it's being done is do the thing and then ask forgiveness. What's that old?
Ask forgiveness before permission, something like that.
Right. Anyway, so I have some information about it if you want to put something together by tomorrow.
I do want to clarify also that the council actually directed this transfer from general fund. So I don't want to sort of make it seem like this was a decision that the CFO made alone. I'm not entirely clear who was part of the team that they put together on that, but I just wanted to clarify that they did receive direction from council in sort of developing this fee structure. Kyle?
Yes, this is pretty brief, and I think I'm just also working out timing for the remaining agenda items. First is, if we're looking to get official written testimony in before tomorrow, the council meeting is from 9:30 to 12:30 tomorrow, and the flood safety benefit fee is the 9th item on the agenda, with a total of 13 items listed. So I don't have capacity personally to do this tonight, but that's it. That's all I got to say.
I would say from staff perspective that you could reach decision either not to comment right now, but to take some time to formulate something. But anytime something goes before council, it is your opportunity for it to be part of the record and something that hopefully the council members will read before deciding. It could be very brief, just a few sentences. And I've heard some key elements just during the conversation about the communications versus engagement. I think Alexis, your short summary was pretty thorough and probably could contain that along with the element that Jenny raised regarding lack of clarity or not, a concern about potential precedent setting and, you know, having things on the utility bill that are not utility related. Of course, there's interest in the fiscal, you know, gives them the capacity in a way to have a relatively small charge on the bill. So it's for collections and billing. There's a reason behind that, which is why they're taking this approach, but it doesn't do away with the concern of the perception piece that it is part of the utility bill from the customer's perspective. And so there's risk to that as you know, PUB has advocated for rate increases that have been, you know, reduced in the past, that certainly would be a concern in the future as well. So it may be worth at least raising that point of issue. Lorraine.
Lorraine Wilson, voting member. Can I make a motion?
Yes, please.
Okay, I want to move that the elements of what was said by okay, my memory is off here now. By Jenny and Alexis be submitted as a PUB's position or sentiments on this whole addition to the utility bill. And I just want to make clear, I am not here to challenge the council and what they decide or anything like that, as we are public body who is advocating for residents. And it seems that, yes, it may be a requirement, it may be regulated and all those things. However, it does not remove the need for the city to be transparent in what it is doing and that its residents understand why. And I think that part of it was not, and as Jenny said, what next? Are we just going to be pushing things through? And this is what I'm saying. Council can decide on whatever they want. However, we are here to advocate for community and to ensure that that community is informed, and we are not used as a checkpoint for anything. And I'm not saying that they did, but coming to PUB is not good enough with cursory information, that it is transparent, because when whomever gets that bill in their hand and they see that charge, they must know and understand what it is and what it is for. And that is what I think is bothersome about this whole thing. So that's my motion minus the commentary after. Okay.
Kyle Chipman,
Okay.
voting member, I second that motion.
All right, motion made and seconded. And again, the motion, the core of the motion was to capture what Alexis and Jenny had shared in their testimony and submit that as written comment on behalf of the PUB. Moved and seconded. Is there any final discussion?
Alexis Strife, voting member. I just wanted to check that staff, Amy and Jonalyn, you all have capacity to draft this. Is that what we're proposing?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Alexis. And yes, I can draft it.
Okay.
Great.
Kyle Chipman, voting member. Amy, I got like work to do tonight. I'm gonna take a nap after this and then do work, but I'll be like online. So if you do need to send something just to spot check text or whatever, I can be available to review.
Okay, thank you, Kyle.
Thank you.
All right, then any other discussion? Then let's move to public comment. If there's anybody interested, please unmute or raise your hand.
TJ Anderson.
Hello, TJ Anderson. First of all, can you hear me? I have a fan going, so good. Wonderful. Despite the small size of the fee, there's a line that kind of comes up when I see numbers like this, and it's death of 1,000 cuts. I live in Goose Hollow with a lot of college students. Right now, we had to have people removed because things had increased over a 3-month period, where people had to stop their colleges, where people had to move out of the city, where people lost their homes. That fee could be a penny and it'd still be too much right now. Because right now, saying that we need to take more out of a group of people, and across the city, we've seen issues with costs going up. We've seen the average wage of the city of Portland going down. Now, I didn't go to any of them fancy Ivy League schools, but even I can do that math. That means we're at a point somewhere where something's got to give. And I don't see where taking money right now is going to get us any better. My 2 cents.
Thank you, TJ. Any other public comment? Seeing none, let's go through the roll. We'll start with you, Kyle.
Kyle Chipman, voting member. I vote aye. Oh, yeah, I can call it out. Sorry. Jenny
Jenny,
O'Connor.
go ahead.
Oh, so you got it, Amy.
I vote aye.
Alexis
Alexis?
Rife, voting member, I vote yes.
Myra.
Myra, voting member, I vote aye.
My number's
Julia, are
shifted in.
you on the call? I think she may have dropped. So
Okay.
we could
I'll
move
make
to
a note of that.
Brooke.
So Brooke,
Brooke Berhanu, voting member. I vote aye.
Lorraine,
Lorraine Wilson, voting member, I vote aye.
and Cormac.
Cormac Burke, voting member. I vote aye.
Okay, and just for the record, Julia, I do not see you, so I believe that is everybody. Motion passes. All right, I will work on capturing that information and we'll run it by the chair and submit that on your behalf.
Thank you for the time taken, Amy.
All right. So
All right. Yeah, so we're tight down to 34 minutes right now. I'm thinking that we can split the advisory body's enhancement project briefing, target 15, let it expand to 20 if the conversation flows in that direction. And that can give us about another 15, maybe 10 to at least get the ball rolling on engagement with council, like forward-thinking strategy. And then feels like there would be opportunity to have a meeting next week. Even though it's tight, we're spilling over on this one with a lot of really valuable public, civically minded discussion and living our values. So, and then we'll just give 5 minutes for announcements at the end. So great. I don't know, Amy or John Lynn, if you want to kick us off on the ABC or Advisory Bodies Enhancement Project.
yes, I will go ahead and get started, and I will move through a little bit quicker. So just let me know if, unmute yourself or raise your hand, board members, if you have any questions. So just at a very high level, The advisory bodies enhancement project, you've received information in the past, so I'm not going to do a lot of background. There have been 3 status updates. We have shared information previously. The third update was the most comprehensive because they've been building towards a package that they're going to be taking to council in this review of advisory boards and commissions and advisory bodies at the city. It is an opportunity for feedback either as individuals or collectively as a board. So we just want to identify next steps. I'm not going to go through the project goals because we've shared them before. It's a good time for alignment, setting up some best practices, making sure there's consistency, and that the boards and advisory bodies that exist are serving an intentional purpose. So that's fundamentally where it's at. At this point, as I mentioned, they've been doing a lot of internal work, engaging with advisory board staff, sending communications out to the public generally, asking for feedback on some of their draft guidelines and classification system, et cetera. Right now, we're in the October input sessions piece. The sessions are this week and next. And they're working towards final recommendations that they'll be taking to council, I believe, next month. So the goal is to compile all the information and have stuff drafted by the end of the month and then start implementation phase after that. So this is the range of kind of areas that they've been covering over their time. And a lot of it is covered in the status update. The document is quite long, so appreciate anybody who takes the time to read it thoroughly. I'm just going to highlight a few key things, particularly in your role as an advisory board, that it's within the city's control. So they kind of classify between things that are outside of the control, like it's part of a ballot measure, so it requires an advisory body, or legislatively or regulatory it requires, or the city can has control over whether it is exists and what its purpose is. The Portland Utility Board falls into that realm where the city has discretion over it. And also that you're an ongoing board. So currently there's no timeline or sunset clause to the existence of the utility board because the need is ongoing. They're working on some general recommendations, and a lot of the elements align with some of how pubs bylaws and practices have existed. So there's a lot of consistency. I don't think that there's substantial changes for you all as board members, but there are some important elements in the citywide perspective of kind of establishing these best practices across all advisory boards. So there will be, if it continues to move forward and the recommendations are adopted, obviously we'll have to realign some of our practices and bylaws, et cetera, to make sure that they align with what is being recommended. A few new components include, as I mentioned, that they're developing templates for like their reports to council and recommendations around the supports that are available to board members, like stipends, maybe the time when meeting times take place to be accessible, et cetera. Having all board members have city established email addresses for their members, as well as centralizing some timelines around recruitment so that there would be established a certain number of recruitments during the year to try to make use of kind of the outreach and intake of applications and processing with greater, I guess, transparency and awareness to the public when those opportunities exist. There are some changes related to the residency requirements that they're recommending, in particular, just some slight change, that's always had language that allows membership if you live, work, worship, or go to school. and play or do business in the city of Portland. The proposed language removes that play or do business piece, but it does still have the live, work, worship, or go to school predominantly in Portland, and also has some exceptions to identify that there may be some lived experience where somebody does not live, work, worship, or go to school, but has some experience that would add value to a board. So there is some process related to that. They're also recommending that all advisory boards and commissions that they do reviews of those boards over time. So basically every 4 years, every board would be reviewed just to make sure that their purpose is still meaningful, that they're meeting the requirements, that there's no changes recommended. So basically each year they're doing this comprehensive review right now, and then they take a quarter of them each year and make sure that there's kind of an ongoing review process. One of the major areas where PUB has in past indicated particular interest in meetings and conversations, and particularly around this review, has been in the relationship to leadership. And so we've pulled out some of those prior slides are pulled from the ones that staff did to council. So there weren't specific slides related to this, but we've just pulled out the pieces that I think are most relevant to you all to be aware of, that they're formalizing some expectations both for boards and for city leadership, council members, and other city leaders. In particular, an annual report requirement, which, as you know, because we just did one, the PUB has been doing, including a minority report option if appropriate. Your bylaws and code also have allowed minority reports and have existed in the past. It also requires annual work plan, which, as you know, you have developed every year and evolves over time. So it has that element as well. It identifies the designated council committee. It would be the body that decides which advisory boards and commissions they invite to be present at public meetings. So if they're going to engage directly in a work session with the board, that would be through the designated policy committee, which for the PUB is currently Transportation Infrastructure Committee. And then if there are written recommendations submitted, that the city should respond in writing, including whether they agree or disagree with the recommendations and progress or actions taken to implement, and any explanation of areas of disagreement. So just to be clear, they're trying to lay out clear city leadership expectations, including proactive, it captures some of the concerns that PUB has raised in prior letters and recommendations that PUB has included about early engagement and before decisions are made, that they don't have to wait for an annual report to request engagement, that leadership should be requesting engagement before decisions are made, and notify advisory boards if there's decision points or discussion items within their scope, allowing sufficient time for the board's input. And it says that boards may be invited to testify by leadership. The work session provision is seems to be laid out as it's time permitting, obviously, based on whether council committees choose to do it, that they may hold annual evening work sessions with advisory boards and have the executive branch, the city administration and bureau leadership in attendance, that it would review past year's work and analysis of how the advisory board influenced city action. So that's some of what your advisory board does do currently, and has done in prior years when it has been an option. It does state that council will adopt their own procedures related to advisory board commissions. And there is language in there about if the advisory board or commission has other requests for council engagement, that those would be submitted through the deputy city administrator that is within there. So for pub, it would be through the deputy city administrator, Priya Dhanapal, who's over public works. And that piece in particular, as staff, we had a meeting with some parks board members as they were just trying to understand how pub currently operates. And they were working on some plans themselves to engage directly with council members, and they had flagged that language around having it go through the deputy city administrator as potentially concerning from their perspective. So just wanted to mention that as well. Kyle, go ahead.
Thank you, Kyle Chipman, voting member. That last point, first, the summary, it made me very grateful reading this document because yourself and John Lynn do guide us so much and facilitate so much of this. It really helps. We're running pretty clean in terms of this organizing document. But that end point, it's on page 51, where they break down the organization of service areas and specifically our public works service area. It was a general question, which the two that jumped out, in addition to our board, was the Portland Parks and Rec Board, as well as the Columbia Boulevard Wastewater Treatment Plan Community Advisory Committee. Is there any other opportunity to like coordinate or be in alignment with those boards, or they do totally different stuff? And I didn't research the actual boards themselves, it was just a general question.
I think there's always opportunity for alignment where it makes sense to. So I mentioned, that the reason John Lynn and I met with a couple Parks Board members was just at their request. They wanted to get information about what you do so that they weren't recreating the wheel themselves, and they're trying to make a plan. So we did, and the pub has had direct meetings, joint meetings with the Parks Board when tree update or tree program was under review and around natural resource service delivery assessment. So there have been in the past where it makes sense for advisory bodies to connect and be getting information jointly. There's challenges related to that just because you all meet on different days, and coordination can be challenging on top of your core work, but where there is potential alignment or ways to amplify each other's voice, that's always a great idea. So I think that would be valuable in the future. I don't know about all of the committees. Parks Board has been the one that we've interacted with most. Most of the other internal advisory bodies have been project specific or time limited. So there hasn't been a lot of overlap, but that's something that we could certainly explore with the leadership. So I just have a little bit more. So just where we're at. So they have the input sessions, and I'll have some details on the next slide about that. Their goal is to go to council and adopt their policy and best practices, and overwinter moving through the end of this year and early 2026, be working on revisions to city code, administrative rules, council procedures, work on alignment of any new advisory bodies first so that they comply with the new requirements, and then work over those months through spring, summer, fall to do some of the work that might be realigning with boards like the pub and training members on information that they recommend, creating new resources for the recruitment, and aligning our bylaws and code with any of the changes that come out of this project. And then over time, continuing to do that with, as I mentioned, the every 4-year reviews of the work. The next steps from pub's perspective is right now there is a public survey. So any individuals can submit feedback on any of those areas that have been developed in those first 3 status updates. There's 2 community input sessions. They're both in the evening, 6 to 7:30 online. You can register for them. One's October 9th, one October 14th. Or comments can just be emailed directly to the advisory body staff who's overseeing the evaluation. And then there will be obviously a point at which this goes back to council, presumably based on their timeline, sometime in November. I'm not sure of the specific dates yet. And then we'll have future work in 2026 to make sure that we do some cleanup of our bylaws, our code, and any other practices, as well as align our recruitment with the timelines that are going to work. So there'll be future work as well. But right now, there's this window over the next, I'd say probably week or couple weeks to provide input back to the project team if there's interest on any of those areas that we just talked about. I did notice, and just in case you hadn't read through the entire document, I did note that one of the bylaws changes that we made just in this past year related to leaves of absence. And Lorraine, I believe you had raised some suggestions around that, and we got some language incorporated into our bylaws to address the times at which there may be a good reason for attendance to not be consistent, and just a way to deal with that. And I did notice that that is an element that's also in their recommendations. Is it does include an attendance kind of requirement, as well as leave of absence provision to allow boards to grant that in circumstances where it makes sense to. Any questions from the group, or areas that either in your reading or in the summary that jump out to you as areas of particular interest in either amplifying the importance of or concern regarding any of the suggestions that are on the table? Yeah, Alexis, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Alexis, voting member. I'll be brief. Thank you for giving this overview, Amy. And when I looked through the report, I'll just say that I was really pleased by a lot of the recommendations that are there, and also pleased to see that we've been implementing a number of their recommendations over the course of the last few years as we've made modifications, right, to our recruitment process. And yeah, I mean, the leave point also jumped out to me as something that we had also just changed. And I was really glad to see kind of the focus in here around, formalizing more about how advisory bodies are working with city leadership, and a little bit more on that process there. It's also like a little late on the details, which makes sense, I think, for this stage that we're at, and also right that they're trying to cover a broad swath of kinds of advisory bodies in this report. And so especially as we move forward with this, I'll be keen to see more about kind of like requirements for certain kinds of advisory bodies like pub, that like there should be a council member designated, right, as our point of contact. And I would love to see someone from council coming to these meetings and to be invited for that work session and like things along those lines. But I was pretty pleased with what I saw here. So thank you for the overview.
Thank you, Alexis. Yeah, I would say as staff that has been doing this for a while, I was pretty pleased with a lot of the recommendations, and felt good about how aligned it was with the focus and priorities of the board and the changes that have been made over the years. So yeah, I think there's a lot. I intend to, just as staff, because I am staff that supports a board, to submit my own comments. So I've done, pretty thorough review, and primarily will just be amplifying the importance of some of the pieces that I'm glad to see contained in the recommendations. Because of course there's always a risk that it's recommended, but it's not seen or moved forward in the final days. So I figure it's always good to just kind of echo some of what's in there, and also include some requests for a little more specificity once we get to that point around intentional engagement with council and how to ensure that there's some dialogue there. Let me see, I believe Lorraine, you're next.
Lauren Wilson, voting member. I just want to acknowledge the work that you all did. Amy, thanks so much for highlighting those, and that aligns with our values, and that it was taken into consideration and incorporated. I really appreciate it, that we continue to move the needle in that direction, especially in this climate where there's so much inhumanity happening, and that just so much harm happening, and on a day-to-day basis. We just need to reground ourselves and remember that we're human beings, and we just have to have that compassion as we move forward in this environment. So thanks so much. I'm really happy to hear about that.
Thank you, Lorraine. Kyle, go ahead.
Lovely. Thank you. Kyle Chipman, voting member. I think that in the interest of time, I propose that we hold, we are meeting next week on the 16th. We have a scheduled meeting. And even before the call, I was chatting with Amy and John Lynn to discuss, viability. It's so close to what we're meeting right now. I think we can offload our council engagement strategy, like open ideation, to that call, and also maybe dig into the formal language put together tonight ahead of the flood, the benefit fee, and talk about kind of an overarching nature of engagement. So does that sound good both to staff and to board members, that we just move toward announcements and then still meet next week with those two as our primary points of focus?
I think that makes sense.
Cool. All right, super tight. In that case, we will transition to announcements. Let me pull up my screen. Cool. Yeah, field trip. We're starting with a potential Westland Springwater Wetlands. Actually, is this on one of your radars, Amy or John Lynn?
Yeah.
I'll read off the screen
So,
otherwise. Cool, thank you.
John Lynn, do you want to start?
Sure. I think you all received an invitation to attend the opening for the Springwater trail, and the BES staff offered to come and present to Pub about it. But then after our leadership team meeting, we inquired with them about whether it would be possible to do a field trip there, since it is getting a bit late in the season to try to, schedule a bull run field trip for the fall. So they were super quick to get back to us, and there's a potential with a couple of weeks of lead time that we could visit a facility that basically it would be kind of a cool opportunity to see a completed project and a work in progress. So probably something like a half day. And we kind of wanted to, I'm gonna look and give you like the sort of brief itinerary. So going out to West Lentz, touring, and then heading over to the Springwater and getting a tour there. And then we could, you know, either find a meeting space to have a meeting or depart from there, depending on folks' availability. So I wanted to kind of get an idea of whether this is something that folks would be interested in, and if so, I was kind of thinking maybe a Friday could work, but what is your availability? Would you prefer a specific day of the week or time of day, like morning or afternoon? Amy, please.
The only thing I was going to add is that the
Mhm.
two locations, part of what is interesting is that they're, you know, relatively close to each other, but one is a project that is where work is in progress, and the other is one where work has been recently completed. So it will kind of provide a little bit of both of those elements in a restoration type project. So that was one of the reasons that we thought it might be a good fit of interest for
Right.
board members.
Yeah. So what do you think? Just kind of want to do a temperature check. Yeah, Kyle.
I'd say Friday afternoons are great, personally, and I'm all down for a field trip. Bull Run was awesome last year, and yeah, I'm fully in favor of this.
Jenny.
I agree. I'd love to go on a field trip. And
Okay.
Fridays are good for me.
Ditto.
Okay.
We're getting new photo this way too.
Yeah, we could
Right.
get some new photos.
We,
That'd be
we do
great.
need to add some to our portfolio, right? And BES staff have been great in the past when we've had field trips at their locations. And so it seems like a timely one that rather than have a presentation in a meeting, it also provides an opportunity for you all to gather and for us to see people in person. And the Director Lou had reached out saying that they would be honored to have the board members tour and participate in the field trip. So we will work on surveying you all for potential date then.
Right. That's great. Thank you.
Hopefully we'll get lucky on a sunny Friday.
Right.
But
Sunny
if
Friday.
not, we live in the Northwest and we all have rain gear. So we will make sure that there's dry options in between the wet ones.
Can I toss in a super quick announcement just before specifically Bureau representatives leave the call? I just wanted to let everybody know, I've been perusing the Portland, Oregon subreddit just in the intersection of our city and this national moment. And on our subreddit, as all this other stuff was being posted, it was a person who came back from the East Coast, and they specifically shouted out how wonderful the tap water is, how grateful they are for Portland water. And like a bunch of people were like, oh yeah, it's incredible, it's awesome, I love it. And they were like very long, thoughtful responses. So even since I loaded up, there's like 10 more. So I just wanted to say, like, there is a big, long appreciation thread in the Portland subreddit. So thank you to the Bureau and all the technical professionals.
And I will be emailing you all, but there will be opportunities for equity trainings that I especially want to make available to anyone who is a new member or who wasn't able to do it before. And that's a city training that I can, you know, sort of coordinate to get you signed up for one of those city trainings. You would be with city staff, but it's relevant training to anyone. And then also looking for potential. I'm not sure that what's going to happen with the ARC meeting for November, because it is on November 11th, which is Veterans Day. So I'm not sure if they're going to move it to a different Tuesday or, you know, cancel that meeting and then go to December, but it won't be December 11th or September. Sorry, it won't be November 11th. So I'll be reaching out about that as well. If you are available for a December It's not the 11th of December. It would be the second Tuesday in December, the 9th. Please feel free to let me know.
And just the final piece on the slide about there's a lot of I think public information that's posted, and so I just want to make sure that you had the website, the portland.gov/federal, just around some of the updates in the city and federal response and the dynamics that have been going on. It's ever changing, so I don't want to try to summarize it myself. I'll just direct you to the public site. And then finally, we'll have a carryover discussion from today. So we'll talk about the elements that Kyle highlighted and continue to work on some of the planning for the future meetings. If there's something that is emerging and of interest to you, please reach out and let us know. Some of the stuff that has come up in recent meetings, we're trying to figure out, when to schedule that in these coming meetings. So we will continue to coordinate with you all. And I think that is it for my end.
Beautiful. In that case, if there are no further announcements or questions from either board members or Bureau representatives or the public, then have a wonderful week plus, safe sunny days to us all. Thank you.